So to start the knowledge relations cartography, I'm going to be talking about brick sensibility and thread sensibility. I hope these images help us to navigate within these different kinds of knowledges. The brick sensibility is usually associated with the box head, that person that we all have inside our bus, and that is constructed and constructs modernity as well. So the colonial system that we live in is mostly values the brick sensibility. So the brick speaks for itself. It's when you think of knowledge as a fixed thing, as an accumulative thing that will end up, you put one brick after the other, and then you build a wall, you build a house, you have something ready. And it's clear, it's plain, there's a different, there's no sense of entanglement, right? It's one thing after the other, and you are accumulating those. While the thread sensibility that we bring here with the second image is an image that helps us to understand the entanglement, the entangled way of seeing reality, the sensibility that sees reality as a circle, but also as something that is not fixed. There's a sensibility that moves things when we relate to the world or to other people through that sensibility. So brick sees reality as a square and knowledge as bricklayering. And the purpose of life in the brick sensibility is to fill the square, to build something, to achieve something, while the thread sensibility sees reality as circle, as something that goes around, something that is not fixed. Knowledge is more about interlacing threads than of layering things one above each other. And the purpose of life in the brick sensibility is an ongoing weaving. It's knitting. It's a never-ending scarf. It's something that is continuous and that has no specific goal to achieve. The brick sensibility is a lot related to how the separability that we explained in the House of Modernity, that I think you saw it on the first session and briefly mentioned today again. So the separability from the land is something that the brick sensibility teaches us, or has been teaching us. The separability is not only from the land itself or from the earth, but also a separability from the divine, from the sacred, from the cosmos. And then I'll move to the third image, where we see the brick sensibility trying to include the thread sensibility. And what we do as bricks and as box heads is that we try to make the thread into a new brick. And we're like, oh, there are different kinds of bricks. Let's include it in our wall. So that's how system of modernity and the colonial modernity system tries to include diversity a lot of times. And when I say diversity, it's pretty plural. It's not only like diverse people or diverse backgrounds, but also how we relate to other knowledges. And that will lead us to the second part of the cartography, that we are going to be showing the relationship between knowledges. So first line of the cartography, and I will read you and guide you through this, and hope this serves as radars as you move towards other processes within yourselves, within the world, within the projects that we are working on. The idea is that these processes, this cartography works as radars to help you interact with whatever you face. So here, when we see the first square, the line square, you can relate directly to the brick sensibility, to box head. So I'm repeating those words because I know you have also heard that before. So in the first part of this line, we see the brick sensibility as the good, the true, the right, the forward, and everything that is diverse, everything that is thread sensibility, everything that is different, that has a lot. In the different one, you can see that it's not only one; it's always a few options of what is different. Everything that is different from the brick is bad, is false, is wrong, is backwards. And then when we go to when we move towards some kinds of reforms of the house, when we are trying to improve the house of modernity, when we're trying to move away from the mess that we are, a lot of times what we do is that we reverse those values. So we are saying the brick sensibility is bad, is false, is wrong, is backward. We don't want to be doing the brick sensibility. We hate box head. We do not admit that we have box head inside ourselves. So we go to the radical alternative of posing them in opposites again. And then we say that everything that is diverse is good, is true, is right, is forward. And one of the traps that this poses to us is that we idealize what is the different knowledges. We are idealizing them because we are saying this is where the good things are, for sure. And then we can move to a third space where we think that everything is relative. And then we're like, I'm not sure, not all the bricks are good, not all the diverse knowledges are good, but it's all relative. I don't see, like, there's no fixed way of judging them, which is possibly a generative space because you can sit with the things more open instead of fixing them as in the first two squares. And then we move towards this fourth space, which is kind of the direction that we are pointing towards, that understands that each one of the ways of knowing, each one of the knowledges are contextually relevant or irrelevant, dynamic and intersecting. And this is the only time, or this is when actually the brick knowledge starts to be a little bit smaller and is part of other systems of knowledge, is one part, is an important part, but it's not a bigger part, and it doesn't try to make everything else into a brick, because that's what brick sensibility usually does. It can acknowledge the other knowledges and the other ways of living and being, but it's always trying to put them back in the format of a brick. And that's what the system does, for example, with inclusion and with some initiatives that just try to put the diverse knowledges back into a brick, back into a wall. So when we get into this fourth space, we are understanding that they are interlaceable, and we start to see the thread weaving the knowledges itself. So it's the first image that shows us how the knowledge can relate to each other. So they are intersecting, they are adding each other. We are not fighting anymore for what is more important or how do I merge this like in a fixed way. Now I'm going to show the relationships between knowledges in regarding to what's center, what is marginal. So in the first image, which is the colonial modern system in general, we have the brick sensibility, the brick knowledge, the brick way of knowing as a center, big in the center, and everything else is marginal. So whatever I cannot understand in box head, it's kind of out of the box, but it's marginal to how I understand the world. When we start moving into changes in this house, into reforms within this damaged planet, a lot of times what we see is a form of inclusion. Not a radical form of inclusion still, but something that says, yes, diverse knowledges come to the square, but you are trying to bring those into the square. So you are still inviting them to get the brick form and to move closer to the square. The square is still the center. The square is still the big thing. So the brick, the box head is still the big thing. And the other things are kind of like getting closer. And in a space of revolution or radical reform, what we do is that we try to center the different knowledges, the knowledges that are the thread sensibilities, and I try to expel the brick sensibility. So I'm still in that antagonizing thing where I cannot sit with the contradictions, where I cannot actually be with the paradoxes. We try to expel and to push out the brick sensibility in order for the other knowledges to be center. So the thought here is that it's either or. In order to center the thread sensibilities, I have to get rid of the brick sensibility. And then in a space that we are trying to point towards, in a space that we sometimes call regeneration, sometimes we just call it beyond reform, we are centering the earth. We come back to center, like, what's the living metabolism that we are all part of. It's not one diverse knowledge, it's not one people, it's not one of the fights that are very important, rather than centering the metabolism that we are part of and all the knowledges are around it. And as you can see here again, even the brick sensibility starts to have a circular form. It's still a brick sensibility, it's still box head, it's still within like a kind of like a square box limit, but it is one out of the other knowledges. And of course, it's very important as well. Like if we want to get an airplane and fly, who I want to build this airplane, of course, it's box head. Like this thing is useful for certain things. The problem is that it became so big and so centered, as we see here in the first image of the screen, that it overrides, it numbs the other sensibilities as well. So that's the problem. The problem is not for box head or for brick sensibility to exist, but the problem with modernity is that it became so big that all the others are not valid.